Hey, I'm Josh, and I'm working on a game called Mansion. Mansion is a top-down orthographic game, but things in the world should still be recognizable as three-dimensional objects. If you look at this hallway here, there's two walls, a floor, and in a weird kind of way, there's a ceiling, but you are just looking through it. Imagine if there was an explosion of paint in the hallway. Drops would hit all of these places, so you would see the shiny tops of some of the paint splats on the floor, there would be a weird kind of side view of splats on the walls, and you would see a darker unlit bottom side of splats on the ceiling. To make effects like this possible, I created a tool where you feed it a position in the world, and it finds a random place nearby, and it tells you if that location is on the floor, the ceiling, or the walls, and also what direction the thing should be facing. Take a look at this monster I invented. Note how the suction cups are on the floor, the ceiling, and the walls. Sounds like the suction cup placement would work a lot like the paint splats. Here's what I have in-game right now. It's got a long way to go, but the idea is there. Apart from that, I mostly worked on several under-the-hood things. I created a note-taking tool that lets me insert sticky notes into my game world, then draw simple annotations to go with the note, which also saves me from having to create art or even placeholder art until I've fully planned out the scene. I also created a system very specific to this game. My mansion has multiple floors, but my game is two-dimensional. I invented a magic trick that allows the player to walk between floors via a staircase, or maybe in the future there could be ladders and things. Doesn't really matter. Basically, it's an effect that fades in the destination floor as you walk up or down a staircase, then seamlessly teleports the player to the destination floor. This means that you can walk up a staircase and the physical world is swapped out under your feet. I obviously have to work within Unity's limitations, so currently when my game has multiple floors, the floors must occupy their own separate space in the 2D world. So in this case, floor 0 centers around 0, 0 in space, and floor 1 centers around 500 meters to the east. I just have to make sure that they never overlap and there won't be any problems. The staircase transition has a few glitches left, but it's pretty close to being awesome. This trick makes use of a system I created to hugely simplify loading scenes in Unity. It wraps up all the scene loading logic in a simple reference-counted resource. If something requires a scene to be loaded, it increments the reference count, and the scene will be asynchronously loaded in the background if it wasn't already. When something is done with a scene, it decrements the reference count. That way, the scene will be automatically unloaded when nothing requires it to be loaded anymore. Since scenes are loaded in the background, they may not be loaded by the time they are needed. For example, the scene might begin loading when the camera gets close to it, but if it isn't loaded by the time the camera can see it, then there's a problem. In this situation, I can request pause until loaded on a scene, so the game will stop running, display a loading spinner in the corner, and wait until the scene is fully loaded, then of course unpause the game when it's done. With those three simple functions, I can pretty easily make an open world game with no loading screens, assuming the scenes are loaded fast enough. I decided to try creating a custom render pass for the universal render pipeline in Unity, which was basically a success. My fancy lighting is all rendered by that render pass now. This means I can use shader graph and whatever other fancy things that depend on the new Unity render pipeline. If you want to write your own custom render pass for URP, then prepare for basically nothing to be documented. I read the source code for just about every little bit of custom render pipeline code that Unity has and anything I could find on the internet to be able to implement this one. Mine needs to be able to render the scene multiple times to different textures for different sets of layers, and it needs to update the light meshes just before the camera renders, and use shaders to combine the rendered textures multiple times. All that added up to a lot of things that were really hard to figure out. Unfortunately, the game actually runs a bit slower than it did before, and the frame rate is actually quite erratic. I'm probably doing something wrong in my render pass, but I really feel like I'm being more conservative than I was before in the built-in render pipeline. Hopefully I can improve this, or it's gonna be a huge pain. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna keep posting videos regularly, so please subscribe, and please like this video if you liked the video.